Okay guys, today I'm going to get back to my series of videos where I evaluate different blocks, kind of a review on different brands of blocks. Several months ago now I did one where I showed you 6 different brands and just did a brief overview. So then I'm kind of circling back and doing a more thorough review of each individual block. You know, today we're going to do BuildBlock. BuildBlock is one of the bigger brands of ICF out there. They are based out of Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. And I would say that when I'm giving you a bunch of their benefits, the biggest benefit is their suite of products. Probably them and Amvic have the most eclectic, well-rounded suite of products, meaning they make everything. Some of them I like less and more than other brands in the competitive things, but as a singular brand that makes every different facet that you might need in ICF construction, BuildBlock might be the top block for carrying everything, meaning regular blocks of different core thicknesses, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Radius blocks. They have, and I'll get into it in more detail in a minute, they have the best and most thorough collection of different radii. And I'll show you a couple of those. This section right here is their biggest, the 20-foot radius. We just sold a pool kit for a guy using about a truckload of these block. This is what we had left over. They also do have a one-sided system and called BuildBlock Hardwall. They have, for your higher R value requirements, they have a sheet that will go inside of it. They have BuildDeck, which I will get into in a minute because I think that's a fantastic product. The only thing I'm not positive that they make or carry is like 2-inch foam for the floor, which a lot of different people make that and maybe they just don't. I didn't see it on their website and I didn't want to, this is Labor Day weekend, I didn't feel like calling any of the BuildBlock guys and bothering them to find out. If I'm wrong, I'm sure you guys will let me know in the comments. That said, let's get into all the different features of BuildBlock. Okay, now first thing, the regular straights and corners. Their corner is not as big as say a Fox Block's corner or some of the other newer corners that are very large. It only has one leg on the small, one web on the small leg. Actually, I'm not even sure about that. Okay, so when we're talking about regular straights and corners, first off, understand that this is not what it should look like. This is from my boneyard. It's quite dirty and yellowed from the sun. But I don't have any brand new straights in stock right now, so you guys are gonna have to imagine it looks as nice as this radius block. They are on 6-inch centers, they're webs. They have very robust webs, and on 6-inch centers, it makes the block very, very sturdy. You can pour pretty wet mixes or plasticized mixes in here for good placement, but they work out really well. The one thing, and I'll just go ahead and hit you with one of my maybe only a couple of negatives on this block, and I'll also give you why they do it and why they don't think it's a negative, are these little nubs. I always evaluate whatever system they have for interlock. These are kind of one of the smaller and easier to damage. You can see like you can just kind of knock them off there. They're the easiest to damage in my opinion on a site. Now, you shouldn't damage them, you should carry them properly and everything else. In the real world, they get bent and then they don't want to stack. That is my only complaint with their regular block, is that I'm not a huge fan of this interlock. That said, guys that use them every day really don't seem to have any trouble with them. And the reason for these block, I've heard one of the main guys at the company explain it, is that with that tight tooth design, it creates so much surface area that when you stack them, the friction is enough to hold it without a need for a clip or zip ties or anything like that to hold it together. Now, this curved wall over here, I've been playing with it today. I've been pushing it all around the shop and I've noticed that I can shake it apart. So I'm not, if that was a Fox Block's wall and it was clipped, it would obviously be all in one piece, but you're not gonna do that in the real world, and I can see that it does very much kind of hold together. So that's why they do it. But again, in the real world, it does make it just a small fraction more tedious. But anyway, that's the straight blocks. There's not much to them. They're just a really solid system. So they also do make knockdown forms. Knockdown forms are any brand, I mean, Nudura makes them, Foxblocks makes them, they'll call them compacts, Logix makes them. They all make blocks that basically come flat and the webs have to be inserted or installed. Nudura and BuildBlock also make a one-sided system utilizing their knockdowns. So the knockdown forms have a little nub sticking out of the back of this that latches on from the side. Now that does make it assemble a little slower than a Nudura that inserts the entire web from the top, but these are incredibly stout. They're called, they're knockdown webs. And then this piece here is called a hard wall connector. Very robust system. The reason we're not using them as much on pools these days, because that's all we used for a year or so, because they are made in my town, which is handy. But we stopped using them exclusively because they do take longer, they cost more labor to assemble than the Nudura ones. That said, awesome system, and we never had 1 ounce of trouble pouring with these things. They're very, very stout, and the knockdowns are effectively for shipping a bunch of product to a remote location. That's generally why you see them use knockdowns when they're shipping to the Caribbean, overseas, somewhere. They will knock them down to where you're not shipping hardly any air. And so that system, you know, does get into one-sided and stuff as well. So that's another big benefit when we're talking suite of products. BuildBlock has a one-sided form. Very few companies do. Obviously, we were working on developing something with Fox that would be kind of the newest best thing. I don't know when, if, whatever that's ever going to hit the market. We are talking to a different company about that right now, actually. Little teaser. And by the way, guys, as I'm doing these videos, I think I'm going to do TF Systems, which is a really weird block. I know I got in a little bit of hot water saying that Crown was a weird block, but I mean, weird that they're very different than most of these blocks. And I think I'm going to do TF. Amvic is sending me a couple blocks to do. I got maybe 4 more blocks to do, and then my very last block I'm going to do probably late October is one that kind of blew my mind. Is one that I didn't expect to be as awesome as it's turning out to be. It's kind of a new design on an old system. That stay tuned on that, because I mean, I think it's pretty game-changing in general in the ICF world. So just a little teaser. I'm not going to mention that one by name yet, because I'm really excited about doing that video as kind of an announcement. So, but the other thing, again, I said, is the radius blocks. This is one of their tight radius. I think these are 2-foot radius. They got 2, 4, 8, 12, 16, and 20, I think. So they've got a ton of different curve blocks. We usually utilize those for freeform style pools. We've done a couple. They're very easy blocks to work with for radius block. They are, I find them to be a little bit easier to use than a Foxblock's radius, and they also have more radiuses to choose from. They do have their own BuildBlock, which is very similar to your other ICF buck systems, where it looks like just a piece of styrofoam, but there's webs embedded in it. One of the companies will be doing a review on the plastic's exposed so you can actually see what you're doing, but it also might create a little bit of a thermal bridge. So these are completely encapsulated in foam. You can't see that. And one thing that BuildBlock makes as part of their suite of products, I don't have any of it here, so I'm going to just have to show you a picture of it over my shoulder here. But a couple years ago, I did a video about what a myth the termite thing was in reference to ICF. The fact that there is no nutrition for a termite in an ICF wall. The real concern, and mostly an unfounded concern in parts of the world that don't have flying termites, is that subterranean termites show themselves by working their way up a foundation and leaving a little mud seam. And the whole concern is that if they dug into the foam to get to wood, wherever that wood is, if there's any wood in the house or on the outside of the house, you wouldn't see the mud seam, and they could theoretically cause more damage before they were detected. It doesn't mean that they're attracted. It doesn't mean that they are in any way, shape, or form going to do this. But it's something that the lumber guys will tell you to scare you about ICF, is that in theory, 1 in a million, a termite could hide a little better in an ICF wall. So they've got a termite block. It's called Build Shield. It is a metal cap that would sit between courses. So what you would do is you'd be down in your basement, you'd be working your way up above grade. And when you get out of the ground, if that termite is down in the dirt and manages to get to your house and he digs in and he's working his way up trying to find your wooden roof or whatever you have 15 feet away, that this termite's going to magically decide to just know it's there and eat through 15 feet of gross styrofoam that doesn't feed him. But let's pretend that's going to happen. They have this metal cap that sits between courses and forces them out. Now they're going to reveal themselves because they're going to build that mud seam. Then you're going to see them just like you would on any foundation. It's also used higher up in between floors as a fire stop. Again, when you put the sheetrock or whatever you put on the wall, there's no air like there is in stud spaces with wood. So fire is much less likely to try to travel up in a house like it would in a wood structure. However, if a fire got going and got into this and started melting the foam would be feeding the fire a little bit, and it was working its way up a wall, this same metal piece will stop it from penetrating on up through unabated. So it's a cool little piece that they made. I think they're the only company that makes it. Again, I could be wrong. This bit of reviews I'm doing is actually really up in my product knowledge game from all the different brands. I basically know what's out there. I spend more time at trade shows and talking to everybody in the community more than most, but I still get surprised doing these videos about, oh, I didn't know they made that. I didn't know they made that. Okay, so another feature that I really like when the ICF companies are including now is when they have a thicker ICF option. There are places in Canada, everything that are legislating up to R30 requirements on new construction. Obviously, ICF may perform at a higher rate than that, but the actual R value will be in the R20 to 24 range on most ICF walls. So what they've started doing, Nudura makes a 4-inch thick side. I think Amvic does the same thing. But most of them, instead of making all new molds to do this, are making some sort of an insert that will line the inside with more foam. That's what BuildBlock has done. You have to use your knockdowns with them, and you have to kind of assemble each block and then put it in and then put the other side on. So it's a little bit tedious, but it's fantastic that they have it. One kind of off-label use that we do with that thicker foam is we like to, when we have a pool that's above ground, in any way, shape, or form. Maybe it's got an infinity edge, maybe it's got some kind of spillover, and we're gonna have a hard time hiding pipe. Like the ones we built down at the beach, the entire pool is up in the air. There's nowhere to hide any pipe. We used Nudura R30 block on those, and we have 4 inches of foam. We're actually able to cut and embed 2-inch pipe, including the fittings and everything else that are almost 3 inches in diameter. They're all hidden inside the pipe. You can side over it, brick it, stone it, and you don't know it's there, which is super slick. In seismic areas, that kind of hides your pipe from that shearing action of the gravel or backfill moving alongside the pool. Completely not what it's designed for, but really handy. So I'm glad BuildBlock has that. They call it thermal cert. Okay, so now real quick, I'm gonna talk about one of my very favorite BuildBlock products. I don't have any here today, so I'm gonna show you a picture of it. It's called BuildDeck. You guys know I've shot a lot of video with doing light deck, insul deck. I've never used AmDeck. It's more similar to this product. But BuildDeck is a concrete floor or roof ICF, basically. It's an insulated concrete form to create a 3-dimensional spanning ICF floor or ICF horizontal surface. I love the idea of using these products. I've used them on multiple big roofs. I'll link a couple videos as I'm talking that you can see us where we poured monster roofs out of it. The thing is, like light deck and insul deck, the products that come full length. I need to do this building here's roof. I'm ordering pieces that could be 35 or 40 feet long. One piece effectively buys me the whole semi. It can be very expensive to ship it, depending on where you are. Shipping is everything in the ICF game. So BuildDeck comes in 2-foot by 2-foot pieces that kind of go together like Legos, sort of like blocks. And then they have no metal. So they're actually probably the cheapest version of decking that's out there. And we have found that the added expense of inserting, you use 2 pieces of metal starter, like a C of 2x4 steel wall, metal starter, not very heavy gauge, and you put one back to back like this and sandwich it between the little ears at the bottom of the build deck, and that embeds in the concrete and creates your joist system. Even when you factor doing that in, we have found that it's the cheapest system of ICF roofs or floors. So we really like them. That's why we started selling them out of all3pools.com, because we love to get these products to the market in the most efficient way possible. So Build Deck is probably one of my favorite things. We wanted to roll it out a couple years ago, and we got some bad information. And that's another reason at All3 that we try to know all these people, be able to talk to them and learn products, because we had talked to BuildBlock and they had sent us some information about bracing, which is everything when you're doing ICF floors. It's very tedious. And at the time, they had an engineer that had subcontracted with them or something. I'm probably getting the story a little bit wrong, but they wanted bracing every 2 feet, according to this engineer. And that's prohibitive. If you know anything about floor system scaffolding and the bracing, it's very much laid out on 4 to 5 foot centers with the scaffolds. Getting anywhere below that creates a need to do a lot of custom false work that becomes exorbitantly expensive. So now all that you save by buying Build Deck over, say, Light Deck in full length pieces, whatever you save is now way gone, and it didn't work. So at World of Concrete, I was actually talking to Micah. Yeah, that was a bad deal because that's not actually accurate. We got guys doing it in 4 and 5 foot centers. And I'm like, well, that's game changing. That is like, that little detail is everything. I'm in now. And so Jerry out in Nashville, I'll put a video up. He actually did a Fox Block storm shelter. I hauled him Build Deck all the way to Nashville. He put the deck on it, and because he has a little bit of hard time getting concrete lined up in a market like Nashville, very hot market, concrete guys are hard to come by, he ends up pouring the wall and the roof at once. That's a pucker factor I didn't even want to see him do, but he pulled it off. It went super smooth and easy. So I'm a big fan of Build Deck. Moral of the story, I think it's probably one of my favorite BuildBlock products. Okay, lastly, as far as everything they sell in their suite of products, they do have their own bracing system. It's going to be a vertical brace system, ultimately very akin to Giraffe or Plumb Wall. And you guys know I'm a massive advocate for fab form bracing. I personally find it faster, easier, lighter, quicker, and I get a straighter wall. But the other, Plumb Wall and Giraffe, are definitely the ubiquitous answer, especially if you're doing a big school building, or if I was doing a warehouse like this, like we are looking to do a few buildings like that. The vertical bracing becomes faster when you have level ground and wide open walls. It would be hard to beat that system. The fact that BuildBlock has their own is nice. Like I said, the more competitors in the market, the better deal we get as consumers and contractors. So more power to them. I hope they all cut each other's throats and we get bracing super cheap. But anyway, guys, I think that's everything. Like I said, fantastic block, fantastic company. They're kind of like Fox in the way that they make them all over the country. There's probably 10 or 12 plants that make them. Luckily for me, they make all of the plastic webs in my town. So they make almost every single product they have in my town. They make Build Deck. That's why I can ship it to you from all 3 pools cheaper than a lot of guys, because I can literally go get it at the factory. So keep that in mind, guys. Just hit up Pat or Eric at all 3 pools for any of your pool needs, but also any of your Build Deck needs. Any of these products we can get you and sell you. So BuildBlock, guys. Great block, great company. And you guys have a great week. I'll be back with probably TF Systems or Amvic in the next week or two. And then, like I said, late October, I'm going to hit you with one more that's going to blow your mind.